It begins, as most forgotten stories do, in the quiet places of England. Places where fog rolls over the fields like a ghostly tide, and where every whisper of the wind feels like it's carrying secrets no one was meant to hear. In the 12th century, long before electricity lit up the darkness, there was a small village named Woolpit, a place surrounded by forests so dense they seemed to swallow the sun whole. Farmers worked their lands, bells tolled from the church tower, and life moved at the gentle pace of medieval England. But one summer afternoon, something happened that no one in Woolpit could ever explain. The villagers were out harvesting, when someone noticed movement near the edges of an old wolf pit, a deep trap dug into the ground to catch the wild beasts that gave the village its name. At first, they thought it was an animal struggling to climb out, but as they drew closer, what they saw froze them in place. Two children, a boy and a girl, stood trembling at the bottom of the pit. They were thin, frightened, and dressed in strange metallic clothes no one recognized. But that wasn't what made the villagers whisper prayers under their breath. The children's skin was green, not pale, not sickly, but a vibrant, unmistakable shade of green, like the leaves of the forest that had birthed them. The boy looked younger, barely able to stand, while the girl clutched his hand, wide-eyed and trembling. They spoke, but their words were gibberish, a language that belonged to no corner of England, no kingdom, no known world. The villagers helped them climb out, wrapped them in cloth, and led them to the manor of Sir Richard de Cabonet, a local landowner known for his curiosity and kindness. There, the children were given food, bread, fruits, and milk, but they refused to eat. They pushed away everything the villagers offered until someone brought them freshly picked beans. Still in their pods, for the first time, the girl smiled. The children devoured the beans raw, as if starving. Days passed, then weeks. Slowly, the girl began to learn English. She said they came from a place called St. Martin's Land, where everything was green, the trees, the rivers, even the sky. A world bathed in twilight, where the sun never shone. She said they were herding their father's cattle when they followed a strange sound, a distant bell echoing through a cave, and somehow, they found themselves in Woolpit. No one believed her, but no one could explain what else it could be. The boy, frail and homesick, soon fell ill and died. The girl lived on, eventually integrating into English society. Her skin lost its green hue, but her story, her impossible tale, refused to fade. Chroniclers recorded the event. Ralph of Coggeshall and William of Newburgh both wrote of the green children. Scholars debated for centuries. Some said they came from another world. Others claimed they were Flemish orphans, poisoned by strange minerals. But every theory cracked under the weight of its own logic. Because no one could explain the color of their skin, no one could explain their language, and no one could explain how they appeared in a land that did not know them. Walking out of the earth itself, time buried the truth under layers of doubt. But stories, unlike bones, don't decay so easily. And Woolpit was just the beginning. Because once you open the door to one mystery, you begin to hear the echoes of others. Centuries later, across the ocean, another settlement would vanish into thin air, leaving behind carved letters on a tree and no trace of life. The lost colony of Roanoke, and somewhere in the frozen mountains of Russia, hikers would die under impossible circumstances, their bodies showing signs no storm could cause. The Dyatlov Pass incident, different places, different times, but the same dark pulse running through history. The same quiet whisper that says, we are not alone, and we never were. The green children were never seen again. But legends claim that on certain foggy nights, when the mist rolls low over the fields of Suffolk, small footprints appear near the old wolf pits, and the sound of laughter echoes faintly from underground. Perhaps the past is not as far away as we like to think. Perhaps it's still watching. The story of the green children was written in the 12th century, a time when superstition ruled, when demons were blamed for illness and angels for light. But this was something else. Too physical to be mythed, too strange to be reasoned. And if you think it was just one isolated event, you haven't been paying attention to the darker side of history. Because there are chapters in our past that were never meant to be read. Chapters that whisper through the cracks of time, waiting for someone to listen. And if you listen closely, they'll answer. Years passed, centuries even. The tale of the green-skinned children faded into folklore, retold beside fireplaces when storms rattled the thatched roofs of English inns. But every so often, someone would travel through Woolpit and swear that the air felt wrong there, as if something beneath the soil still remembered. Stories like that don't die. They migrate, they seep into the cracks of time and reappear elsewhere, wearing new faces. Across the Atlantic, in the raw, untamed land that would become America, another community tried to carve a home from wilderness. The year was 1587. John White led more than 100 men, women, and children to a lonely spit of coast called Roanoke Island. They built their wooden houses, raised fences against the unknown, and waited for the supply ship that would return in a few months. It took 3 years. When the rescuers finally arrived, the colony was gone. No bodies, no struggle, only one word carved into a tree trunk. Imagine walking through a silent village, tools left on benches, dinner plates scattered, doors hanging open while the forest stares back at you. They called it the Lost Colony, but what if it wasn't lost? What if, like the Green Children, they simply crossed over? Witnesses spoke of strange lights off the coast, of voices that didn't echo right in the fog. Some swore they saw figures watching from the tree line, tall, thin shapes with luminous eyes. But the world was too busy building empires to listen to whispers in the dark. The historian's pen buried it as mystery. The storyteller's voice kept it alive. Maybe that's why the same silence echoed again, centuries later, far from the Atlantic shore, high in the Ural Mountains. January 1959. 9 hikers, young and fearless, trek into the frozen wilderness. They never return. When rescuers find their tent weeks later, it's ripped open from the inside. Footprints barefoot, in the snow led downhill. The bodies, when discovered, are scattered, some half-clothed, others with crushed bones but no external wounds. One has no eyes. Another's tongue is missing. Radiation clings to their clothes like dust from some invisible explosion. The official reports speak of an unknown, compelling force. Unknown.compelling.force. Words as cold as the mountain wind that erased the trail behind them. And yet, in one of the hiker's diaries, a final note: we now know there is something out there. Each of these stories, the children in Woolpit, the settlers of Roanoke, the hikers on Colat-Siacal, feels isolated when you read them apart. But listen closely, and you begin to hear the same heartbeat beneath them all. People standing on the edge of the known world and staring into something that stares back. Back in England, there's a legend that Sir Richard de Colin's manor was built over ancient tunnels, older than the Romans, older than the stones of Stonehenge. Some nights, servants claimed to hear faint knocking from below, like small hands against stone. The knocking always stopped before dawn. What if the Green Children never came from the earth? But through it, you start to notice a pattern: the color green. The colonists left behind plants that shouldn't have grown in that climate. The hikers' clothes, after radiation testing, glowed faintly emerald under UV light. Coincidence? The rational mind says. A thread, whispers the other voice. We prefer not to see patterns when they frighten us. London, 1872. A ship named the Mary Celeste is found adrift in the Atlantic. Sails intact, cargo untouched, crew vanished. The log stops mid-sentence. Fresh food sits on the table, still warm when she's boarded. Time itself seems to have hiccuped. The captain's wife and daughter were among the missing. 2 more names added to history's long list of people who walked into the mist and never came out. Investigators blamed alcohol fumes, mutiny, pirates. None of it fit. What ship, abandoned in panic, leaves behind 6 months' worth of untouched rations and a lifeboat still tied in place? It's as if something unseen plucked the people away, leaving the vessel as a ghost to drift on. The sea has always been a mirror for our fears. Beneath its surface, we imagine endless worlds, creatures older than continents. Maybe the Mary Celeste didn't just lose her crew. Maybe she crossed paths with whatever hides between moments, the same force that opened beneath Woolpit soil, the same silence that devoured Roanoke. But there's another layer to this story, one that history rarely mentions: a pattern in the stars.